course, had Smackdown with plenty of interesting. I mean, the most important stuff was Carmella was back. We had more interluding storylines with, of course, Murphy returning back to his Messiah after what looked to be him, rebelling over him, beating him up, assisting Mysterios, trying to get good with the Mysterios. Then a lot of confusion happened when he assisted Otis in the qualifiers for the Survivor Series SmackDown team, and then ended up helping him secure the win. We're looking with him also issuing Messiah Disciple. That looks like he's returning back. So whatever's going to happen it is going to involve the Mysterios, Murphy, Rollins, and I'm at least getting some drama out of this. I'm just not that captivated over Seth Rollins' pudgy body and Murphy just trying to think that he could just still fit a small because he's a cruiserweight. We had Street Profits persuading over Big E to try to give them some information over the New Day because he is tag team partners with them, trying to get a bigger scoop. And then we had Billie Kay trying to harass them, even though she was on Raw with them. So the joke was worthless. Other than that, just give Billie Kay a managerial role. We barely have any type of managers on SmackDown that are actually relevant other than Paul Heyman with Roman Reigns. I'm being serious. I'm being truly serious. I can care less. I really can. Because now here we are in November, and we're still trying to bring any importance to why they even care into a match that doesn't benefit them in any strand. The belts are not on the line. All they want to do is just win the match. It's just a bit cringe. We also opened the show with, of course, Bayley facing off against Sasha Banks in a rematch for the SmackDown Women's Championship after a Hell in a Cell match. So this just took 2 weeks of time. The match was average. It wasn't as good as their Hell in a Cell match. Counter off the Meteora. Looks like she was attempting something from the ring post, and then she got hit on the shoulder. Bank statement. Then that's it. Other than that, Carmella came and gave her a super kick, looking like she was trying to pull whatever Scarlett Bordeaux's wearing, but she has a horse face, and of course Corey Graves coming off, just coming after that because of course who's eating her out? Him. So of course she has to hype up the factor of her being untouchable. Into my chagrin, that I think she was a talented hack. That people that are actual jobbers or lower card stars get more over than her. I did this complaint on my last SmackDown review. We had an interview going with Charlie Caruso, not even trying to bring legitimate questions. Her journalism skills come into, oh, now you're getting a Roman Reigns coffee. And all of this BS. Like, that wasn't even legit journalistic questions. Just to bring up that now that you're the busboy for Roman Reigns, and then consulting with Roman Reigns after a bit of a conversation with Kevin Owens, because bringing up his coffee, and then Roman Reigns illustrated a match for him and Jey Uso that ended up in the main event. In my opinion, that shouldn't have been the main event. But either way, to counter the story, and of course Jay's with Roman Reigns, so obviously anything's gonna be an important match. Go back on that later. We of course had the qualifiers again for the Survivor Series SmackDown team. We had King Corbin against Rey Mysterio 1-on-1, and it was getting more closer with Hurricane Aranas. He attacked him earlier backstage without his wrestling gear on, so he had to wrestle without his gear. Looking like a dad, all he had was his gloves. Hurricane Aranas, Dominic was over to the corner. Rollins kept just appearing over to the ramp, teasing out with a deep six. The match was getting closer to its conclusion until Rollins started attacking Mysterio and Dominic, with Murphy and Aaliyah coming to assist. It ends up with an end of days that looks so poor because it didn't look that effective because his feet weren't that high off the ground for it to look effective. And I don't know how Corbin, over a span of at least a month out of television, And it's like, okay, we can finally push aside the King gimmick. It's not really getting him that much heat. He's not conducting that much reasonable wins unless it's a guy like half his size. And he's not that really captivating as a heel. He's a pudgy mess that obviously needs some developmental issues. That's why NXT works. And now they want to put this in a third brand method, even though the most captivating heel that you have is a retired NFL punter. I apologize for being as rude as I am, man, but that's how it is on NXT. Whatever gives you another reason to watch NXT other than the work rate, I don't know what it is. All I hear is Pat McAfee doing some cool stuff. So, yeah, Corbin is now on the SmackDown team with Kevin Owens and Jey Uso. Then we had a triple threat qualifying match for the SmackDown Women's Tag Team for the SmackDown Women's Survivor Series team. So we had Natalya, Zelina Vega, and Ruby Riot. I don't know where in the hell was Liv Morgan. I think they're just leaving that out because we forget how lackluster our women's division is. So we'll have Ruby Riot that has a new cut. Not a big fan of it, in my opinion. With Zelina Vega that already jobbed out to Bianca Belair in the first qualifying match for the spot for the Survivor Series team, so I don't know why she's given a second chance immediately. But it was coming to back body suplex. There were some spots over the submission. Zelina Vega was getting stopped every turn with Natalya until the sharpshooter. Then there was a double submission spot. It ends up with Natalya somehow, even though there's no rope break in a triple threat match, she loosened the sharpshooter. Even though Ruby Riott was still holding on, she taps out, and that's the spot. Get Natalya off TV. I'm begging you. At this point now, get her off TV. She doesn't do much. She doesn't have a character. All she does is just bounce in there. And I understand veteranship does account for the roster. And if you want that to get more of the women better in the ring, I understand keeping her on the roster. But by God, she does nothing. She's nothing except she's part of the Hart Dynasty. And even a chip on his or her shoulder character doesn't work for Natalya, especially when she's still irrelevant, or it doesn't have that major storyline other than getting drafted away from Natalya. That was her tag team partner. And what's Natalya doing now? She's part of the Raw Survivor Series Raw team, and she's still getting jobbed out on television. You know how many times she got slammed out on the commentary table? It's more of a joke. It's more of a joke what's her husband doing, but that's besides the point. I don't want to get more personal than that. We also had an interview involving Lars Sullivan with Michael Cole. He's like one of the most. If people said that Crash Holly's, uh, if you haven't watched his interview on TNA before he passed away shortly, in a short life, rest in peace, Crash Holly. Uh, he came up tossing away Mike Tenay acting like a whiny, petulant child, and at least it was an understandable gimmick. Because of course we know guys that obviously are mad at everything in life, and he's small, so it makes sense. You have Lars Sullivan being like, I was bullied, I was getting my lunch money taken away, I was being called a freak, and then I worked out. So what made him a freak before? We had no pictures. We had no old pictures of what he looked like and what he looks prior. Because if we look at the younger pictures of what we see, he looks like a freaking gym rat. He already looks ripped when he was in his 20s. And probably in his teens, he must have looked like a normal kid. So what part of him was actually disdain? Other than he came around screaming, he legit screamed. He was like this. That was the most funniest thing I've ever watched in my life. I'd rather watch Gene Snitsky NFL punt kick a baby again than see this ripoff Snitsky smudged midget piece of garbage. There's nothing interesting about Lars Sullivan. If you can tell me differently, I will pay you in pennies. I'm poor. I apologize. Other than that, this was probably the worst promo ever. Mankind's promo back in the 90s be damned when they try to actually make interesting characters interesting. That probably broke the no hump, just a simple spine on the camel's back for Lars Sullivan's character. God, if they continue this, they're probably gonna put him on the Survivor Series team anyway. We'll just see how it's gonna go until then. Other than that, that's just depressing. That's depressing for anything I've watched. Next up, we of course had one more thing. We had, of course, the main event that was Kevin Owens against Jey Uso, of course, representing his family, all this stuff. And it ended up with Jey Uso picking up the win after a distraction of Roman Reigns' theme song after Kevin Owens was attempting another powerbomb. There was a pop-up powerbomb, barrages with the super kicks, a cannonball senton, a lot of near falls until Jey Uso took advantage of the distraction. Paul Heyman was also in the corner. They ended up celebrating after the Uso splash, and it ends with the victory. Jey Uso picks it up for the familia. I mean, for family. Other than that, that's the show. This was at least better than Raw in a standpoint that we had a return of a wrestler. We had more information on Lars Sullivan. We have at least qualifying matches that were important, and at least some of them were to advance a story. And at least we got more of a spread into what's going on with Jey Uso and Roman Reigns. So I'll give it that much. At least it was still captivating to watch. I was in tears, laughing tears over Lars Sullivan's promo. I got no sympathy out of the guy. I have no even peak to even continue watching the dude. Just that promo. That's peak, like, lolcow when it comes to being a professional wrestler. And if you can't say anybody else backstage laughed as hard as when Retribution backstage were getting laughed at by most of its peers and co-workers, then you know how terrible Lars Sullivan is. I don't even know why they bring him back other than they're trying to make a rip-off Gene Snitsky. I'm being serious. Other than that, this is your Smackdown review. Thank you for taking your time out of your day for watching my video. I, of course, have plenty more reviews on Raw and Smackdown or in AEW. Go over sports. We're in the second half of the NFL season. Hopefully, I try to keep up, and I'll do slight recaps on some NFL teams, what's going on, because I know I've been pretty lazy doing that. But other than that, thanks for watching. That's it for me.